2 years ago, we reviewed the Toyota Granvia People Mover with its comfortable captain's chairs 6-seater layout. We looked at it from the perspective of taking adults around in comfort, well suiting the hospitality and corporate market, and we did a video on that. Toyota has just updated the model, mainly with connected technologies. So to get another perspective, this time we've tested it from the family viewpoint. Setting it up has a few battles, especially with child seats, but there are some clear advantages in how it copes with a young family. The Granvia replaced the Toyota Tarago People Mover. The Tarago was first launched in Australia in 1983. It became almost the generic name for people movers, with a no-nonsense appearance and good practicality. It grew through 4 generations and sold over 104,000 vehicles through to the end of 2018. Toyota seemed to have forsaken the "if you are on a good thing, stick to it" philosophy in order to change the image to the more luxury Granvia, aimed at high-end hospitality, corporate and family buyers. And they didn't launch the Granvia till October 2019. The changes to this 2022 makeover focus on now providing Toyota connected services, which offers safety features including automatic collision notification, SOS emergency call, and stolen vehicle tracking. Depending on the model, the connected services can also provide information on the status of doors, lights, windows and keys, and provide notifications if the driver has left the lights on, forgotten to lock the car, or close the windows. There's also remote access from your smartphone via the My Toyota Connect app to a variety of information such as fuel level, recent trip data, and vehicle location, again depending on the model that you get. Trip data such as time and distance travelled, as well as measuring acceleration, braking and cornering speeds, can then be provided to the driver as a score and help them improve their driving efficiency. I like getting a summary of various driving factors, as most of the instant information on the dashboard, such as instantaneous fuel consumption, is rarely helpful unless you're concentrating on it, which seems almost invariably to the detriment of your safe driving in general. The new Granvia drivetrain remains the same. All models come with a 2.8-litre inline 4-cylinder diesel engine with 130 kilowatts at 3,400 RPM and a pretty sizable maximum 450 newton metres between 1,600 and 2,400 revs per minute. It only has a 6-speed automatic and is rated to get 8 litres per 100 kilometres combined fuel consumption. The body shape is that of a Hilux van, which is far from elegant, particularly at the rear. It has the appearance of an oversized hearse. In our previous review, we tested it by taking 5 adults on a weekend away, but in this latest review, we see how it stacks up with a growing family. Obviously, the vehicle is well suited if your children have had several growth spurts and are the ones who are first picked for a basketball team, but little ones with safety seats need space and practicality as well. For this model, we went on a picnic trip travelling to the south of Sydney with Matthew and Pia and their family. And so while in the car, I asked Matthew to describe his family. How many children do you have?
3.
What ages are they?
5, 2 and 3 months.
Packing them in?
Yeah.
What car do you normally drive?
The Hyundai Palisade.
Is that serving your needs well?
I think so. It's certainly tight when we go on holidays.
Because of all the things you need to pack as well?
Yeah, definitely. While we've got a portable cot and pram, that takes up most of your space. Once Albie is big enough to sleep in a bed and walk, but that's still 2 years away in terms of being able to have him not have a stroller or something like that.
You thought about getting a people mover, but was space a problem?
There's concern of, we live in the inner west and park on street, so Certainly the size of the vehicle was a consideration. The Palisade, I think, is just under 5 metres, so it just makes it easier to reverse park. But more so, my wife, Pia, refused to own a van.
A van just was the wrong image?
Yeah, anything with sliding doors or that van look. She didn't want to be a soccer mum. And the Palisade's a really nice looking car, and it still looks like a car. It's just a big car, kind of.
Looks like a big SUV, which it is.
Yeah, very much like it's like a Kluger size.
The Kluger made no effort at being an off-roader, whereas the Prado does.
But I always find like the Toyotas, like this feature-wise, they always lag behind. So at the time, we got like a whole host of features in the Hyundai, I believe, and you'd be able to check that for me, weren't available certainly for the same price. So yeah, bigger touchscreen, all of the additional sort of safety features.
It made it more compelling from your point of view.
Yeah, so it was around $70,000, and it was like you got a lot for that money, which is a lot of money when you say $70,000 for your Hyundai. I don't think 10 years ago no one would have thought the Hyundais would be selling for that sort of price, but you get a lot of car for that price.
Fitting the kids into this Granvia, which is really set up with, well, not really, it is set up with captain's chairs. How did fitting the child seats in go with that?
Yeah, it's definitely, because they're like a gold class stadium seat, they have the sides, so solid sides, which make for increased comfort, but near impossible to put an ISOFIX child seat in, the bottom support.
So the armrests aren't fold-down armrests, they're like, as you say, a lounge chair.
Yeah, exactly, an armchair. Yeah, an armchair with sides, and now it's a problem. You know, if you're a family, you probably only have to deal with, once every couple of months, once when you put them in, and then if you need to move it to do something. But it was a lot harder than a standard sort of bench seat in our Palisade. You can get access either side to get to the clips.
Is that true for a forward or a rear-facing seat?
Yeah, so the anchor point is the same for forward and rear-facing.
In terms of travelling, did the kids like it?
Yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I don't know if it's the mixture of it just being new, is the novelty, or and no, it would be the space as well, and the reclining. They love putting their feet up, and it does feel like quite a premium kind of experience sitting in a big armchair as a little kid.
They had an ottoman function that the support under your calves of your legs electronically comes out. That proved to be quite a feature for them, didn't it?
Yeah, despite the fact that I don't think their feet reach that far.
The 5-year-old could, but the 2-year-old told me her feet didn't reach.
But even just the full recline with, while a lot of cars have that, they're not button operated, not electronic. And so the kids were able to sort of press a button and go into full recline mode.
Of being able to play with that.
Yeah, and you can get a little bit of recline going on while they're still in the child seat.
Is the 5-year-old asleep?
He is, and I'm looking at him now. I've probably got the seat too upright, so his head's come forward.
You've got anchor points on the 3 rows for the child anchor point?
Yes, so all 4 seats have. So the second row and the third row, the 4 seats all have anchor point.
That's important because in the Palisade, they're only on the side of the 60, isn't it? 60-40 split.
Yes, so we've got the 7-seater Palisade, which has 2 seats in the middle row and 3 seats in the back row, which in theory, could give you 5 anchor points, but the back right side doesn't have an anchor point, so that cuts you down to 4. But because the back row is so small, you can't put 2 seats together, so it really cuts you down to 3 effective child seat restraint.
But the good thing about the Palisade is you can, in the second row of seats, you can get between them.
Yeah. So it comes in a 7 and 8 seat configuration, and in the 7-seat configuration, there's no middle seat in the middle row, which allows you to shuffle up the back. Although it's not as tall, like it's definitely very handy, and I've used it quite a lot. But when you're in this car, the head height means that being able to shuffle up the middle is even more effective.
To strap the kids in, make sure everything's working.
Yeah, you should see me trying to get Xavier, if he's fallen asleep in the Palisade, you're trying to lift, but you're effectively kneeling, and you're trying to get a sleeping child out of the back without waking them. It's quite hard. Whereas in this one, you can get a bit more room to pick him up and carry.
You ever thought of getting a bus?
Yeah, it's tempting. I quite like. I think we've nailed the combo where we have one big, but not big, so big that you can't drive into a busy shopping centre car park, and then our other car is a Yaris, which is a car that you jump in. If you want to run up and just get the milk and it's just you can buzz up the road and park anywhere.
You don't take all the children?
No, so that is basically only fits 2 car seats in the back. Now, quite often it's rare that we need to pick up all 3 children at once, and if we do, then we take the bigger car.
And in the Palisade, you just put 1 in the 3rd row, but in this you put 2.
Yeah, so because that 3rd row, it's only got 2 anchor points and they're so close together in the Palisade, I don't think you could, it'd be interesting to see if anyone's ever done it, but fit 2 car seats in that 3rd row. It just seems like if they would have, instead of putting the 2 ISOFIX and anchor points in the left seat and the centre and leaving the right blank, if they just would have put it on the far left and the far right, there would have been plenty of room to have 2 seats in the back. But yeah, I don't know why.
If you put 2 children in car seats in the 2nd row, you then cramp your space a lot, don't you, to get to the 3rd row, particularly if one of those child seats is rear facing.
Yeah, so like having 2 in the centre is not too bad because you've got the gap down the middle. It's having 3, and so a lot of people will have 3 across the middle, which then effectively means you can't get to the back. And they're in grabbing distance of each other. So having 2 in the middle is good because you've got that space. So the centre row, and then there's an open space in between them.
Keeping the children apart, the captain's chairs is really good for that, isn't it?
100%, yeah. And it just gives them a little bit of their own space. And yeah, they've got cup holders and they can have their yogurts and their stuff for travel.
But you can also then move the 2 rows of seats, row 2 and row 3, forward and back quite a lot. I think in the Granvia. In the Granvia, you could actually move them quite enough forward and squeeze in a bench seat in the back. This is not for families. This is because you'd have absolutely no carrying room, but it is for perhaps picking up people at airports. But they're quite 2 different functions.
Yeah, and I didn't realise that you could do that sliding of the seats. And as I got the car, the back rows were slid so far back, I couldn't fit the pram in the back of the car. So I was putting it down the middle of the car. But yeah, you've since told me that I could have shuffled the centre row and the back row of seats all forward to give myself more boot space. And there's plenty of room. Like it's massive. Like the centre row, as I have it configured, has almost a full metre of leg room. Which is just not needed. I could have used that in the boot.
It does make getting in easier, though, doesn't it? And then back to the 3rd row.
Yeah, 100%. If you moved it forward, yeah, you do get a bit tight, but you get a boot.
All right, Matthew. Thank you very much.
No worries.
The Toyota Granvia People Mover. The good points? Well, it's very comfortable. And the captain's chairs make access easy and keep the kids apart. And you can get an 8-seater in 4 rows, but it practically eliminates the cargo storage in the rear. The not so good points? Well, it is pricey, and there's not as many features as the opposition, and it is very van-like in its looks. In many ways, it's like the old Toyota Tarago, but with a bit more comfort inside.